Avast, ye scurvy scallywags! It is the BrickLink Designer Program Series 7, and today we will be looking at the pirate themed sets. There's only 14 that have been submitted in this round, so we'll be checking them all out. You've got until February 21st to vote for your favourite, and make sure to comment down below on which, if any, you'd like to see win out. We shall begin here at Forgotten Islands, a tribute to the Islanders series from the beloved Pirates theme. I have to say that Pirates is my personal favourite out of all the LEGO themes, followed pretty closely by Castle, but Pirates just pips it to the post. I have so many fond memories of playing with the classic pirate sets as a kid, and this is really evocative of those to me. Thanks to LEGO Ideas and Barracuda Bay, or indeed the BrickLink Designer Program and the upcoming Thieves of Tortuga in Series 5, we've got some simply amazing designs that are a wonderful blend of that display and playability. However, they are just simply more polished and incredible than those simple classic pirate sets of old. This, I feel, is far more nostalgic to those. It's all about the play factor and relative simplicity. That doesn't mean that I don't think it doesn't look good, because I do. It's just certainly nowhere near as magnificent, either in scale or detailing, as those others that we've got. But it really doesn't need to be. This comes in at just under 1,300 pieces. That puts it at a nice size point for this program. The potential price point should be pretty reasonable, and to my mind it should be popular. This, after all, can be a bit of a side build to some of those other much more grandiose ones that we have, and definitely pulls on the heartstrings for those of us who remember playing with the old sets that this is so obviously a homage to. So I think that the fan designer has done a really nice job here. You can obviously have it with or without the bridge, depending on if you want two separate islands positioned differently around your own home setup, if you do have a bit of a pirate display going on. And I love the sense of adventure that I get from looking at this set. There's some wonderful little details dotted throughout and would make for such a fun play set. So it's been really well done. It definitely gets my approval. And I will put the link for all of these in the description down below, so you can head on over and vote for your favourites. Next up sees a return of the Scalawag Sloop. This is just 575 pieces. We've seen it proposed before. There's many a time that I don't like a brick-built sail. I prefer cloth ones, but not the case here. This, absolutely perfectly done. It's chef's kiss territory for me. All done on the perfect scale. I love the humour in there as well, with the bananas being put in, of course, to satisfy the little monkey. And whether you're lucky enough to own some of those, original ships like the Barracuda, or even if you can only dream of doing so, what a fantastic little sloop to add into your collection. It is the fact that it's so small that makes this entry really strong. It certainly shivers my timbers, and if it was chosen for crowdfunding, I think it would disappear even more quickly than Jack Sparrow's rum. Next on the list is the Wolf Pirates, a mashup between our Wolf Castle factions and taking to the seven seas for the pirate's life. This one coming in 905 pieces, so definitely still on the smaller end of the spectrum. And alongside the Wolf faction's ship, we also have a wizard's little boat, which appears to be using a fir tree for a sail. So this is certainly very different. It's employing the imagination fairly heavily. But, you know, on the positive side, whilst it's fairly small and therefore pretty simplistic, everything has been constructed in a nice, good-looking way. Pretty decent choice of colour throughout, I'd say. And it's certainly an interesting proposition as far as mashups go. It's not going to be for me. Perhaps I'm a little bit too traditionalist in that respect when it comes to the themes. However, it's good to give mashups a go. Sometimes they do really work. I think I'd just like to see some properly accurate ships for the medieval line itself, as there's simply so little in that regard before trying to cross over into pirate territory as well. So doesn't get my vote on this occasion, but I certainly don't dislike it. It's a really fun concept, and if it's your cup of tea, go and vote for it, because it's out of the box and has been done pretty well. Moving on now, though, we come to the Pirate Outpost. This one slotting in at 942 pieces, so again, another small one. A lot of strong contenders for the lower end of the spectrum in this series. Certainly not a bad thing, because usually we get sets all duking it out for that top spot with big piece counts, and sometimes the lower ends do get neglected. Certainly not the case here in Series 7. We're being treated to quite a few good designs, and this is no exception. Definitely one that has been aimed more at the play factor again, a little bit like the very first one on this list. I don't think I prefer this quite as much, but that very much comes down to personal taste. I don't have anything negative to say about it. It's very clear what it sets out to achieve, and it does it really nicely. It's also quite refreshing as well to have something that is more focused upon the vertical rather than sprawling out, which tends to happen more with pirate submissions. So this is a pretty nice break from form in that regard, and I really like the coconut trees and the sort of ramshackled way that this outpost has been constructed. And there's also the little caves down here with treasure to be squirreled away by our marauders band of cutthroats. I think that my sole real criticism has to be the balance of trying to create these sets that are very nostalgic of the classic pirate ones that we used to have, whilst modernising them. Because, of course, these days, whether it is that Barracuda Bay I mentioned or Thieves of Tortuga, we want sets that can have great playability but also a real display impact. Very hard to do that, I admit, when you're looking at such a small piece count. But I feel these would benefit perhaps from having a few more pieces put in just to increase the polish of them and make them sit alongside those other sets a little bit better than they currently do. That's not just going for this one, but those previous ones we've looked at as well. Because I love the playability factor of them. Definitely ticks all the right boxes, but you do have to think about the display shelf as well. And that is the only point where I find these a little bit weak. Sailing onto the sea next, though, is this, the Skull Renegades ship. Comes in at a little bit under 1,200 pieces and is a very nicely appointed mid-sized pirate ship. Whilst I was a fan of the brick-built sails on the sloop, I find that when we tend to start getting into the slightly larger realm of things, I would prefer cloth. That's purely a note for if this was actually made by Lego. I'm not saying that the designers can do that, but more if it was ever actually produced. Of course, as this submission goes, very nice, no complaints there. It would certainly make for a very nice play set. Sadly, for the last BrickLink series, I did allude to the fact that there were other ships coming, obviously more of those are now known, so I don't think that any of these submissions are really going to stand too strong a chance of being picked out at the moment. That said, certainly more so than on the likes of Lego Ideas, so it's not beyond the realms of possibility. And one more aimed at the classic pirate line like this certainly stands out, so that might make the difference. Fingers crossed that it does, because this has a lot of character and would be very welcome. The next submission is Buccaneers Bluff. This one a bit larger, coming in at just shy of the 1,500 piece mark. And I feel that it's a little bit more of a case of form over function. We have some nice shaping when it comes to the waters, although I'm not so keen on quite so many colours going into it. You know, if you actually look at, obviously, the sea, we tend to get colours blending together more as they change rather than just dotted about as this seems to be, although that, of course, is subjective. But when it comes to the island itself, we've got some really nice craggy outcrops and shaping going on, but it kind of feels to me like it's showing off an interesting way of building this without actually achieving a final design that looks nice to display and is actually usable from a playability point of view. We've got a lot of grey rocks which don't particularly have much character. The only alleviation from that is the palm tree, which is very nice. But the big issue is just a lack of space in here. Because we've got all of the admittedly interesting shapes crafting this, there's few studs that are actually left exposed and therefore very little amount of space to place those minifigures on. I mean, the cave that we have here, it's very small. Yes, it can be withdrawn out, but there isn't that much going on, and sadly I just don't feel that it looks particularly nice enough solely to be for display. It seems like it's been created for the playability side of things, and yet that just is lacking, especially considering that high piece count on this, which has clearly been taken up by creating all of the shaping and texturing that we have around it. So, a bit negative on that one, I'm afraid. It's nothing against the fan designer. I think they do fantastically to put things forwards, and it's very easy to simply sit back, and judge other people's work. But I try to be fair, and the whole point of these videos is to be honest with you in my opinions. It would be rather disingenuous of me otherwise to expect you to watch this and not be open. So I think that it has merit, but unfortunately falls down overall, and there are definitely stronger pirate submissions for this particular series. Sadly, it's a little bit of the same story for this, the return of the ghost ship, something we've seen proposed before in a couple of different iterations. And whilst it definitely achieves that ghostly vibe, I really like the vines that are hanging off the sails and down over the sides, it also detracts, I feel, from the build overall. I mean, first of all, we don't have any minifigs, just the skeletons, which I know they obviously count as far as BrickLink goes, but, you know, in LEGO's own standard, skeletons aren't actually minifigs, so you're then not getting any with this set. It's quite wide, and yet perhaps because of all of the little pieces that have had to go in to give it its character, it's then quite difficult to actually access, so the playability of it is affected again. I always have to think practically, particularly when it comes to the pirate theme sets, because they mean a lot to me and I grew up playing with them. There is that fun factor involved as well. Can you actually get involved with the set? It's not just there to look at. And yes, whilst you could here, it's just simply not easy to do. It is a little bit messy, perhaps deliberately in order to create its overall look, but that does detract a bit from the feasibility of actually owning and enjoying this set. Of course, that is just my personal opinion. It is subjective. And as always, if you disagree, feel free to put that down in the comments below. And if you do like it, make sure to go on over and give it your support. Just misses the mark a little bit for me. Now, by contrast to that other island that we saw just prior to that previous ship, this one, Adventure on Tapu Island, I feel is a bit of a triumph. It is larger, coming in at just under 1,900 pieces, but it does have a real sense of adventure. Yes, there's a lot of grey again. However, whilst we still manage to maintain some interesting shaping going on throughout, there's a real splash of colour that seems to be done in a much more sympathetic way to the build as a whole. You know, it's all simple, it's not a highly detailed waterfall, but it's been nicely built, even down to those blue translucent cheese-shaped studs at the bottom to look like the water is bubbling as it hits down there. The flow of the flowers over the side, and of course the campfire up here cooking the fish. It's all these little details that really do add in that much more. And then when you consider that you can turn this round, because it's modularized, you can reconfigure it into different setups, that takes the playability and enjoyment factor of this to a whole new level. It still doesn't have that high level of polish that I'm really looking for, but it's getting much closer to it whilst retaining an immense amount of fun throughout it. You know, all the intersections are quite small, and yet there is enough space for our minifigures and plenty of accessories, and so many little adventures that can be acted out within a relatively compact set. The raft as well, that's a lovely little touch, and of course Brucey the shark. Gotta have him, or her, could be Brucetta. And I don't mind that we've got skeletons in this one so much, because we do have a proper couple of minifigs in there as well. And it's nice that our fan designer has sort of created a bit of a story to go with this. We might not know what it is unless you read the description, etc. But that doesn't matter, because I think that the bricks very much do the talking, and the way that this has been laid out has a great sense of adventure, and you do feel that you could easily bring that story to life. So I'm excited about this one. Takes me back to being a kid. I think it's a great submission, has a huge amount of potential. On now though to Sharkfang Outpost, and we're starting to get higher up the piece count now, almost 2,400 pieces to this. And you can see that quite a few of those are small. Whenever I see roofs like this, I always think that's not going to be too pleasurable to put together when it comes to building. However, there's no denying that it does look pretty good as an end result. Really pretty. And I do like the brickwork that's gone into this as a whole. It looks pretty nice. The added size of this also means that there are plenty of places to have little adventures with our minifigs. And yet, when we start getting into this sort of layout and more size area, it once again starts to have to be thought about in conjunction with other sets of a similar ilk, and I think it doesn't stand up too well when you start to compare. It's not that it has to try and be better, it's just it needs to be sympathetic, because of course somebody who's going to want this is also going to be keen on those other sets as well, and to my eye it just doesn't marry in as well. It's pretty nice, it's just not very nice, and doesn't have quite as much playability or certainly nostalgia as a couple of those previous ones that we've seen. So I'd give it a solid 7 out of 10. Just needs a little bit more refining, in my humble opinion, in order to stand a stronger chance of getting through. Now though, we come to a much bigger ship with the Royal Flagship, and this is virtually topping it out. A couple of pieces under the 4,000 limit, and there are some pros and cons to that. Firstly, on the plus side of things, this is a very big and imposing submission. Many a fan would love to get the chance to be able to build something quite so detailed and impressive as this. Whether you look inside or out, you will not be disappointed when it comes to feature-rich detailing, wonderful choices of colours, and certainly nice displayability. The playability, not so much. There is definitely room for minifigures to be positioned in different places, but I think just when you start looking at builds like this, because of the amount of parts and how they're positioned, etc., it's not really lending itself so much to fully interactive play. No doubt about it though, you can have some fun positioning the minifigures around, and not every set has to be for the play side of things. It's much more traditionally an A4 set in that respect. Going to look great on your coffee table. However, bearing displayability in mind, on the downside, half of the ship is open. So the exterior of the hull on this side is completely missing. I don't like that personally. Maybe some do, but this isn't like the Goonies ship where you've cleverly got the caves integrated and there's therefore a reason to have one half open. It just doesn't make sense on something like this. And whilst you could certainly buy extra bricks to do it yourself, that's not the point when it comes to BrickLink Designer Program. This is very much a design that is supposed to be ready to be boxed up and sent out. And if you're going to be paying the big bucks for it, which you certainly will, then you want it to be finished. Certainly have it sort of modularized so you can take it apart and gain access to it that way, but just having it open, it kind of feels like the designer has maybe reached the 4,000 piece limit and therefore run out of the ability to close it off. And that's a shame, because otherwise I think it has been really well put together. And if perhaps some compromises can be made, or not compromises, but tweaks in design elsewhere, it could then be changed to actually have it closed up, as I think the majority of fans who would be interested in a set like this are going to want that in a display model. Of course, it is subjective. I'm sure some would love to have it open, and again, feel free to debate that in the comments down below. But that is the bigger drawback on this one for me. However, a set with very few drawbacks is this, the Lost Island. Very impressive, about 3,200 pieces, just under. And although when I look at the way that the roof has been done with all the different little pieces, I know that it would not be pleasurable to put together with my fat fingers, I would be very happy with the end result. The wonderful shaping and texture and just the colours used in this, it makes it pop. The combination of the stonework with the wood and the thatching and the colour of the shutters and just the overall angles and shaping that has been captured in this, all highlighted even more by the glorious green of the palm trees and other foliage that's popping out around it. It's got huge amounts of character. On top of that, you have plenty of space inside, filled with fun features, where you can position a whole bunch of minifigs. Now that is a downside to this, because despite its large size, it only comes with one minifigure proposed. I fully appreciate that that kind of goes with the story that the fan designer has put together here. However, when you're looking at getting a build that's this big, I certainly want to be having more minifigures coming along with it. Mind you, even if you want to introduce your own, there's no shortage of space with which to do it. It's certainly not your traditional type of pirate themed submission. However, it wouldn't look too out of place, I don't think, with some of the others that we've already had in the past. So, bit of a different submission. Slightly left of field. I would prefer something more traditionally piratey, but there is no knocking what a wonderful design this is. Now, another big ship is the privateer frigate Fortuna, one that has been submitted since Series 5. And whilst I am a little bit against fan designers continuously resubmitting things series after series, unless there is a really big overhaul, I do kind of make an exception with this because it's very different from any of the other submissions that we've had. Even the other large ship that we looked at a few minutes ago, this takes the detailing to a whole new level again. It really could be put on display next to other proper ship models that aren't made out of Lego, and it would not look out of place. Such a stunning design that would be a fantastic centerpiece that has been really beautifully thought out. Now, again, it doesn't really have the playability factor simply because of all of the pieces that are going on. It is very difficult to get in there and actually interactively get involved with it, but it's not that sort of design. It doesn't need to be. You do have plenty of minifigures which you can have fun with by simply positioning around, and in that respect, I think it does all that it needs to do. All of the pieces and the colours used, the attention to detail full stop on this is so wonderfully executed. It's attracted a lot of votes in the past. I have very little doubt that it shall do so again. Sadly, it hasn't made it through previously, and that kind of makes you feel that it's not going to. And really that just comes back again in my mind to the fact that there are several ships in the works for LEGO already, you know, even with the return of the Pirates of the Caribbean theme. So perhaps that's just why they don't want to give us something else like this, but it's so different, focused on the detail and the grand scaling, that logically I don't feel it should clash. And the BrickLink Designer Program is a perfect out for LEGO to actually do it. But then it's not just competing against other pirate theme sets, it's competing against everything that is in this high piece count range, regardless of theme. So that does put it up against stiff competition. Nonetheless, fantastic design. If you like it, make sure to vote for it. If it were chosen, I would certainly be trying to crowdfund it. Now, it is in direct competition with this, the Libertalia Fortress, also coming in with 4,000 pieces. Obviously a land-based set though, not a ship. And a little bit different from others that we've seen proposed before, and that's actually quite refreshing going with this particular colour palette. And I'm a big fan of the shaping, love the sloping walls coming up into the turrets and our cylindrical little towers here. Architecturally seems quite Arabian in feel, certainly the vibes that I'm getting, but regardless of the inspiration, it's very impressive. Seems to have a nice balance as far as the exterior goes between cool display model and something that you want to get involved and play with. Now, that does change a little bit when we get to the inside. Not from the play factor point of view, there is plenty of room in here, so many places to display your minifigs, hide your treasure, etc. However, we do have a lot of exposed grey base plates going throughout this, and I feel that that's more coming down to the fact that we're at the piece limit already. So much of it has had to go into creating a pretty exquisite exterior, and by the way, also a really nice lineup of minifigs as well. Unfortunately, that means that the polish is lacking from the inside. So great from play, not so much from the display factor within. Does that matter? Because of course, if you're putting something on your shelf or a table or whatever, it's really the exterior you're mostly going to be looking at. I guess it doesn't matter as much, but when trying to narrow down to the best designs overall, you have to take in everything, and that's the slight drawback on this one for me. If the interior was as polished as the exterior, then this could be a contender for top spot. As it is, falls a little bit short for me. I'd certainly prefer that previous ship that we just had a look at, but it certainly takes one of the runner-up spots. I have, however, saved my top spot for last, on what I feel will make the next perfect pirate set, Anchor Cove's Imperial Shipyard. We saw this put forwards for Series 5, however it has been improved since then. It's been built with a little less than 3,200 pieces, so it's not topping it out, and yet despite that we have all of this incredible detail, wonderful accessories, all of which can add up to making an impressive adventure. And this, I feel, really is a demonstration of creating a set that is perfect for both display and play, which fits in with not only the classic pirate sets of old, which we all remember, because this is definitely a huge nostalgia trip for that, but it's also been updated with modern design techniques, with the polish that we expect from sets these days. Again, Barracuda Bay, Thieves of Tortuga, those were also sets which paid homage to what had come before, but updated them with modern day building and become something that you could proudly have as a centerpiece. So too with this, and yet wonderfully accessible, easy to get into and begin to play with, and contributing to the pirate world as a whole. This fleshes it out even more. Maybe that doesn't mean anything if you don't have that many pirate sets, but if you are fortunate enough to have quite a display and you're wanting something that complements those, makes you feel like you are becoming more immersed, well, I can tell you this definitely does it. However, even if you're just after something that is a standalone piece, then you need look no further, because this has everything for the true pirate fan. You know, in all the sets that LEGO has ever given us or been proposed in ideas or BrickLink Designer Program, we haven't had a shipyard. And it makes perfect sense to get it. And look at all of the wonderful little references that are within, such as the wall being able to come off here and you can switch the tables round, get that Black Seas Barracuda out in the open. I can just see so many things being lived out with this. You could have the pirates coming in to try and sabotage the building that's going on for the Imperials so that they can't take to the Seven Seas. But how brave to also have a ship under construction to make we fans, the viewers, feel like we are coming into a living, breathing world where the hustle and bustle is going on. It's such a fantastic level of imagination, which has been transformed in such exquisite detail into the set that we see here. And this is what really impresses me. You know, I have some, what I think to be very strong ideas that would make fantastic LEGO sets, but taking them from my head and transforming them with the level of skill that we are seeing here, that blows me away. So to my mind, this is the best pirate submission of this series and one of the strongest submissions, full stop. I will be doing a video at the end of the week on my predictions of what will win out, and I already know that this is going to be part of that video. It's an incredible build and it earns my vote. If it earns yours too, then make sure to head on over and do so, link in the description below. Get commenting on what you would like to see picked, and make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I look forward to seeing you very soon for the next one.